Welcome to the very first episode of Solo Travel Unpacked. I'm your host, Kelly, and I could not be more excited to kick off this journey with you. Solo travel has completely transformed my life. It's pushed me out of my comfort zone more than once, helped me grow in ways I've never expected, and introduced me to incredible people and places along the way. And I'm not alone in this. Solo travel has been booming in recent years. One of the things I love the most about solo travel is the people I meet. Each traveler has a unique story, a different perspective, and lessons learned along the way. That's why I created this podcast, to introduce you to a different solo traveler every episode. You'll hear their experiences firsthand, their challenges, triumphs, and all the unexpected moments in between. And along the way, they'll share their advice, practical tips, and insights to help you along your own solo adventures. So whether you're dreaming of your first solo trip or you're a seasoned solo traveler, this podcast is for you, to inspire you, encourage you, and remind you that you're never truly alone in this journey. Thank you for being here. Now let's dive in and start unpacking solo travel together. Thinking about solo travel but don't know where to start? FTLO Travel makes it easy. They plan small group trips for solo travelers in their 20s and 30s, so you get to explore incredible destinations without all the stress of planning everything for yourself. From local experiences to logistics, they handle it all. Plus, their trips are exclusively for ages 25 to 39, so you're traveling with like-minded people. If that sounds like your kind of adventure, FTLO is giving you $100 off your first trip. Just use code SOLOTRAVELUNPACKED at checkout on ftlotravel.com. Welcome back to Solo Travel Unpacked, the podcast where we explore the world one solo travel story at a time. I'm your host, Kelly, and today we're exploring a topic that every solo traveler faces at some point: stepping outside your comfort zone. Studies show that pushing yourself outside your comfort zone can boost confidence, reduce stress, and improve adaptability, all skills that solo travel naturally develops. But taking the first leap can feel intimidating, which is why today's conversation is all about embracing those moments of discomfort and turning them into incredible experiences. Joining me today is Lindsay, a solo traveler from New York City, who made a promise to herself after a life-changing accident to take a solo trip at least once or twice a year and embrace life to the fullest. And she's done just that. From navigating Japan with a friend to snorkeling with sharks in Belize, Lindsay has pushed her limits in ways she never would have imagined, all through the power of travel. In this episode, we'll talk about the moments that challenge us, whether it's rooming with a stranger on a group trip, crossing a suspension bridge high above mountains, or ordering food in a language you don't speak. Lindsay will share how solo travel has helped her embrace the unknown, the ways she's learned to adapt in unfamiliar places, and why pushing past discomfort leads to some of the most unforgettable experiences. If you've ever hesitated to take that trip because something felt intimidating, this episode is for you. Let's unpack the magic of stepping beyond our comfort zones. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast. I love that you've made it a priority to take big trips every year and challenge yourself in new ways. Stepping outside our comfort zone isn't always easy, but you've embraced it through travel in so many different ways. But before we talk about that, can you tell me a little bit about yourself outside of travel?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here. Yeah, so I'm Lindsay. I live in New York City in Manhattan, Upper West Side. I work in marketing at a big bank. And in my free time, I just love staying active, doing dance classes, workout classes, as well as exploring the city, museums, reading, and of course, traveling.
Yeah, you've got a great city in New York. I'm sure you're one of the main destinations people who aren't from there like to go to.
Really.
Awesome. Well, can you share a little bit about your solo travel journey? Kind of what inspired you to start traveling solo?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of travel solo right after college. So that was kind of my first foray, doing some Kontiki trips, an under 35 group, and then kind of took a hiatus for about 10 years right after college as I was starting work and saving up money. And then unfortunately, I was in a very bad accident and kind of opened my eyes that, anything could really happen at any point in our lives. So I didn't want to wait and I really wanted to see the world. And I was like, now's the time to start traveling. And so about 2 years after that happened, I basically started my journey on a trip to Greece and then kind of haven't stopped since.
Well, I'm sorry to hear it was an accident that got you back into it, but I think you take an approach that is really noble of kind of looking at how life is so fragile and how short it can be. So that's really special. That's what got you back into it. So it sounds like, of course, we can allude to people we think that do solo travel are more comfortable stepping outside of your comfort zone. So do you naturally consider yourself someone, who enjoys going outside of your comfort zone, or was traveling solo a big challenge for you?
Yeah, I would say probably not. For any of my friends listening, I'm probably very risk averse. Definitely don't do anything too risky. So that's why I think for me, traveling solo is kind of risky for me and kind of going off on my own. I'm usually, traveled with family or friends, but really kind of embarking on a trip alone when you want to do something and kind of not really waiting for someone else. There's somewhere you want to go. You don't want to kind of coordinate schedules with people. I'm just like, you know what? I just have to go for it.
Absolutely. So you say you're risk adverse, and sounds like your friends will agree with that as well. So when you're getting ready to go into some of your first solo trips, whether it was in the beginning with Kentucky or after you took a little bit of break, what was one of your biggest fears or uncertainties you had before your first trip, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think just one, not knowing like the culture, the language, kind of how things are going to be on the trip with the other travelers. So I think just doing research really helps, looking into the places you're going, what you're doing there, kind of getting your mind ready for that. And then also just realizing that everyone on the trip is in the same boat as you. So just being open and friendly and kind of getting to know everybody.
Yes, that's something actually somebody, Lindsay and I know each other through a trip to Portugal. And so I was just chatting with our friend Ella, who Lindsay knows as well. And she said the same thing, going into that eyes wide open, but knowing that others on the trip are also coming in solo really helped a lot. So you talk about different ways that it can push you, and it can push us in different ways through solo travel, whether it's, trying new food, meeting new people, navigating a new foreign city, a different language. What was one moment on your travels when you really had to push past your comfort zone? Is there anyone in particular that comes to mind? Quick break to share something that might make solo travel even easier for you. Traveling solo is incredible, but let's be honest, it can feel overwhelming at times. Planning, logistics, wondering if you'll actually meet people, it's a lot. That's where FTLO Travel comes in. They organize small group trips for solo travelers in their 20s and 30s so you can explore places like Japan, Morocco, or Brazil with a ready made crew of like minded adventurers. You get the freedom to do your own thing, but never feel completely on your own. And to make it even better, FTLO is giving you $100 off your first trip. Just use code SOLO TRAVEL UNPACKED at checkout on ftlotravel.com. Sounds like a pretty great way to make a solo trip easier, right? All right, let's jump back into the conversation.
Yeah, actually, most recently I was in Belize on a flashback trip, and there was a cave hike as part of that. And so basically, you go into this cave. So you're in a bathing suit, you're in water shoes, you're going across this river on rocks, and then you're also in a cave. So you're basically swimming at points, hiking at other points, kind of low areas. So definitely was very scary and risky. So I think just not really knowing what to expect. There were really no pictures of it, didn't really have any background on it. I'd heard one person had gone on it before and had mentioned it to me, but so just really going in with an open mind and kind of realizing that we're all in it together. And I
Mm-hmm.
think just having the group, we were in smaller groups from the bigger group and just kind of each telling each other, warning each other, hey, there's a step here, there's a rock here, this is slippery, kind of helping each other through it, taking our time, following the leader. We had a tour guide particular to the cave. So just really taking my time and really just realizing what you're doing and realizing that you're going outside of your comfort zone and just trying your best.
Yeah. So you go through the cave, you come out on the other side, and you feel the sun again. How did that feel once you got through it?
Definitely amazing. Like you definitely accomplished something huge. Yeah, it was just awesome. I felt like people related it to like Indiana Jones when they came out or just seeing the grass. It was just beautiful. It looked magical. And I think just realizing that I could do that was definitely great.
Yeah, well, I'm proud of you. My hands are sitting here sweating. We talked about this a little before we started, and I was like, I think that'd make me super nervous. So that's amazing that you did that because I'm not
Hey,
quite sure
you've
that I
done a lot
could.
of crazy things too, I'm
I don't
sure.
know.
Zip lining and that hike in Chile looked crazy.
A cave might be where I draw the line.
we got through it together. So,
See, and together, you did it
yeah,
together. I think that's what
exactly.
matters. So, you allude to that you had some friends that you've met on your trip, you've done some solo group travel, and I know for some people, meeting strangers can be intimidating. So, how do you approach those social situations when you're feeling hesitant or you don't know anybody in the group you're walking into?
I think just again being open, realizing that everyone's in the same boat as you. They're going alone. They don't know anyone else. And a lot of times they've actually never been on a solo trip. A lot of times when I talk to people, they've never even done a group trip before, whereas I've done a bunch of group trips, so I'm almost have more experience than they do. So kind of making them feel at ease and kind of giving the background of how they work, and then just being open, talking about where you've come from, your family, your friends, what you like to do back home. I mean, these are all relatable topics. So just trying to find commonality with people. I think work always is a good one as well. So I think no matter who you meet, I mean, I've met people from around the world, the UK, Australia, all over Europe, New York, United States, etc. So just knowing that everyone has similar life background, especially if you're around the same age. So everyone's definitely open to sharing about
Yeah,
themselves.
and finding that common ground is such a good point. And even if it's something that feels so obvious as how'd you end up on this trip or how'd you end up here? I mean, and in those
Exactly. Or
moments
where
that can
else
be,
have you been? Where else are you looking to go?
yeah, so start with that common ground that you know exists and kind of feel it out. But you talked about the cave. And in your intro, I talked about you swimming with sharks, another place I might draw the line. So, but you have gotten through these moments, no matter how difficult they were. So I'm curious, when you've pushed yourself outside of these comfort zones, has it completely changed your perspective or made you look at yourself, maybe yourself or something else in a different way?
Yeah, I think just realizing that even if I'm uncomfortable in a situation, like I can still push forward and do that. And I think whether it's, surfing, like you said, or that's another thing we did in Portugal
Hmm.
together. And I was so scared. I remember even after our tour guide was like, oh my God, you stayed out there the entire time. Like I was scared to even put the wetsuit on. And then I ended up keeping at it and even getting up at the very end. So even if I didn't get up, like it didn't matter. It was just fun to try. So I think just anything in life, if you keep trying something or get outside your comfort zone, like you'll just get a lot out of that. And I think even like at work, like I always am pushing for more and more. So what's the worst that can really happen, right? If you try, the worst is someone says no to you. So I always
Yeah.
say, doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, you can definitely apply those same tactics. I think it always reminds me, we obviously see a million quotes in our lives, but there's this one that I read a long time ago and it's always stuck with me and I'm going to paraphrase it. It talks about be brave, even if you're not, pretend to be because nobody can tell the difference. And
Yeah.
I think I'm thinking about you in these moments, and I'm thinking about myself and others in these moments that are walking into maybe a situation that wouldn't even be so obviously uncomfortable to somebody else, but you never know, So it's really just facing that and taking that chance. And I love how you've been able to incorporate it, back into your work and daily life as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. So curious, what advice would you give to someone who wants to travel solo but is really nervous about taking that first leap?
Yeah, I think just if you're uncomfortable going fully alone, which I have done as well with friends and kind of coordinated the trip, I think doing one of these group trips is great because the itinerary is planned for you. So you can just sign up and kind of know that everything is set up. And then the only thing you need to do is really get yourself there via plane or transportation. And then just feeling comfortable in that and meeting new people and being open.
Absolutely. And that is a huge perk of these solo trips is that when you sign up, most of them you can see the exact itinerary. So you know what you're signing up for. Likely there is some downtime, but again, there's no surprises. Okay, I realize things can happen when you travel.
Yeah,
Sometimes there are surprises and things go
very
awry,
true.
but you've got a pretty good idea going into it. And I'm
Exactly.
curious, how do you balance kind of this excitement of pushing yourself, right, with the need for self-care and not quite overwhelming yourself too much. Try some new things, but you don't want to push yourself to where you've become uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I think trying like one or two new things, either an activity or a food or an experience, and then kind of also making sure that you give time for yourself to relax because I think it is a lot on yourself. You're somewhere new, you're exploring, and I think a lot of the group trips do a good job of this is they do make sure you have at least a half a day or a day of relaxation. So taking that to relax at the pool or the beach or wherever you are at the hotel or even doing self-care like getting a massage or some sort of treatment, just to kind of, you're on vacation, so you also want to take care of yourself. I think that's really important. And if you feel like sometimes these trips are a lot and very busy, what I've done is I also extend the trip and kind of take time to do that as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of extending the trip. And then also to your point, a lot of these trips are go, 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 which some more than others. The itinerary will be your key, but finding that time to recharge, right? You know, whatever that looks like, to your point, getting a massage, going on a walk, just taking time by yourself in the lobby to
Just
read a book.
chilling, yeah, reading a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, whatever that looks like to you. So if we've got somebody listening who's still on the fence about booking their first solo trip, what's one thing you would tell them to encourage them to take the plunge?
Just just do it. I think just sign up and figure out a place where you feel comfortable, maybe then, like somewhere maybe speaks the language. Maybe if you speak
Hmm.
English, maybe pick like the UK. If you're not as comfortable going somewhere that speaks another language, that could help kind of ease the transition. And then decide, do you want to do a group trip? Do you want to go solo or with friends? And then kind of figure out what's your itinerary look like, or which group do you want to go with, and kind of take each step as you go to figure out the best path for you.
That is such a great point, Lindsay. There's so many different places you can go, but there are also so many different companies that can reflect better on what might look good to you, or even traveling local. You know, that could be another option if you don't want to quite use your passport. So that's
Exactly.
always, a way to get started.
Yeah.
But you have done so many different solo trips, all over the world. Is there one that stands out to you? I know we talked about the cave and the surfing. Is there another one that has maybe challenged you or surprised you, or just maybe an unforgettable solo travel story that you want to share?
Yeah. I was actually in the UK for a work trip, and then I extended it, again, extending. And I was there, I was at a conference, and it was about to end. We were on the last day, and all of a sudden, the Queen Elizabeth, died. And it was just such a wild experience. The conference completely shut down. We did not do the closing ceremony. Everything was shut off. We didn't even know if we were going to have the closing event. Everybody just kind of scrambled and left the ceremony, the conference center, and then just kind of seeing how the country reacted to this was just so unforgettable. You know, there were shrines for her everywhere, pictures, flowers. You could just feel it everywhere you went in the UK, in London, in Edinburgh. So it just was something that I've never seen before. And I just feel like in the United States, you never really see that for a president. You know, it's on
Yeah.
TV, people talk about it, but then it's kind of like forgotten. Whereas here it was like, even for days after. And then the whole, sighting of her casket. And we were actually in Edinburgh when we kind of were following her, it felt like. So one of the trips we did, we actually almost sidetracked. We were on a Bath and Stonehenge trip, and we had to basically forego going to Bath since there was so much traffic, which we think was due to the Queen dying. So, also just being flexible in traveling is really important. Knowing things may not go as expected, and just being open to that and flexible is really, really important. I found that a lot. And so just craziness, but just an unforgettable experience.
It had to be surreal. Awesome, Lindsay. Well, to wrap up this episode, we will end this episode with how we end all of our Solo Travel Unpacked episodes by asking our guests the three same questions. So, first one, the advice I'd give to someone considering solo travel is.
The advice I'd give to someone considering solo travel is just do it. Just sign up and go.
My favorite part about solo travel is.
My favorite part of solo travel is getting outside your comfort zone, trying new things, meeting new people, trying new foods, and exploring a new culture.
Something I learned about myself during solo travel is.
Something I learned about myself during solo travel is that I'm willing to try something new. Again, get outside my comfort zone and meet new people and extend and see a new city.
Amazing. Lindsay, thanks so much for coming on and sharing all of your amazing travel stories. Appreciate you sharing your tactics and some ways you've pushed past your comfort zone and hopefully inspired some new solo travelers out there.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was a
Yeah,
blast.
awesome. Thanks, Linz. If today's episode has you feeling inspired to take that solo trip, FTLO Travel is an awesome way to do it. And if you're not sure where to go, their team can help you find the perfect fit. Just head to ftlotravel.com. And don't forget, use code Solo Travel Unpacked at checkout for $100 off your first trip. Safe travels! Every episode brings a new perspective, so be sure to subscribe and join us next time to meet another incredible solo traveler. If you love this episode, let's keep the conversation going. Follow us on Instagram at Solo Travel Unpacked Pod or on Facebook at Solo Travel Unpacked. And if you have a solo travel story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to be a guest. Until next time, let's explore the world one solo travel story at a time.